everybody, and welcome back to Odin's movie blog. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope we're doing well. And today we're talking about Taika Waititi, who has thoroughly let me down. Taika Waititi has now become Rian Johnson, at least on Twitter. Hopefully he doesn't do the same thing to a franchise like Rian Johnson did to Star Wars, but of course that still remains to be seen. Now, let me just say, right off the first bat, I like Taika Waititi. I think that he's a very talented director. I love what we do in the shadows. I love Thor Ragnarok. Not everyone agrees with me on that, but hey, that's okay. That's what opinions are all about. I do think that we can definitely at least say that objectively it has a lot of really good things going for it, but obviously the subjective experience is always going to be a little bit different. But here, Marvel's Thor, Love and Thunder director Taika Waititi trolls Thor fans. I'll ruin your mythos in a minute, baby. So of course, this is in response to everyone, I would say most people, maybe not all people, but most people, having a negative to moderate reaction to the announcement that you would have a female Thor coming into play in the next Thor film. Now, of course, we've already talked about it on this channel, about how that just does not make sense with the lore that the comic is based on, how they didn't start doing that in the comic in a real way, like pushing the character in a real way, with Jane Foster being Thor, until Disney took over Marvel Comics and until they started to push their agenda into these various different comic book editions. And so we are able to show that there's very clearly an agenda driven there. And so, of course, it makes a lot of people say, hey, we didn't really like this then. We're really not liking it now. So could you please stop trying to push agendas and instead just tell good stories that actually make sense with the mythos that is actually based off? It's interesting that I'll ruin your mythos in a bit, but no, you'll ruin the mythos, not my mythos, not her mythos, not his mythos, but rather the mythos of Thor. If we're going to go back to the comics has always been, with Thor comics, has always been based off of the actual lore of the Norse mythology. Now, of course, has it been completely up to date with it? Has it been completely by the numbers with it? No. But this is a pretty big change to say, oh, any single person, male or female, can now withhold the power of Thor and also be called Thor. You see, I think that if we, at the very least, we could all come to an agreement that to say someone has the power of Thor, meaning that they can wield Mjolnir, that they are worthy, that they have certain powers, I think most of us could say, okay, fine. If you're going to do that in a comic, okay, fine, that makes sense to an extent. But if you're going to go ahead and start to say, no, we're going to call this person Thor, we're going to call this person Mighty Thor. Remember that it was Taika Waititi that was getting pissed off at people because they kept saying that she was female Thor, because she is female Thor. It's either she's going to be Jane Foster, who has the power of Thor, or she is going to be called female Thor. And either way, it just doesn't really work with what's been previously established in the overall universe. But even if we were going to go that far with it, that's still not good enough for these people like Taika Waititi, who's all about trying to troll fans on Twitter. So for those that are looking at it, it says here, it is due. So MB Mars 8 at MBTune05 says, it is due to your Marvel work that this mess is possible. Your writing ruined Thor, his mythos, and his character. So no, I do not want to see this film if we are truly getting a Jane Foster Thor. Now, I'm going to strongly disagree with him as far as Thor Ragnarok, because I thought that was a very good film. Does it take the character in directions that are not completely in line with previous iterations of the character? Yes, I would say so. I would say that you have a very different Thor in Ragnarok than you do in the first Thor film. However, I think that it's done in a way where it's actually done to work with the film, work with the franchise, work with the actual mythos that's been described there. But I do agree with it at MBTune05 that Jane Foster Thor does not make any sense, and I know that this is what Taika Waititi is actually responding to and says, I'll ruin your mythos in a minute, baby. Kevin Rodriguez then says, Taika Waititi ruined Thor Ragnarok for me. Too much comedy. Let's hope he doesn't do the same with Thor Love and Thunder, which, I mean, again, strongly disagree, because comedy is a good thing in films. I think comedy worked very well in Thor Ragnarok, and we can disagree on that. However, we're just going to go ahead and look at what's going on here about how he's talking about Thor, talking about the upcoming Thor film, saying, sorry in advance, sucka. See, even if I disagreed with it, I wouldn't actually go after fans in this way. I would not actually troll fans, much like a Rian Johnson did. Obviously, I think that he's being a little bit, I'd say that he's not being nearly as bad as Rian Johnson, because Rian Johnson called people man babies, called people certain names. He's just being a troll here. And I think that there's definitely some, I think, does he have the freedom of speech to do so? Absolutely. I just don't think it's a good look. And it also makes me think of him just a little bit less, because I thought that he was going to be above and beyond this, but apparently that is not the case. Jake Weaver says, I'm so depressed about this. There isn't a single announcement regarding this movie that I have liked. And then he says, there, you'll get over it when you realize you don't know what you want until I give it to you. Now, of course, that's going a little bit more in depth there, seeing that he did not actually call out Ragnarok or even call out this specific film, but just says, I don't really have anything to be excited about this movie for so far with. Taika Waititi's going after them. It's interesting that Taika Waititi is going out of his way to go after people that just have opinions on his film. Ava Victor says, completely normal. It makes sense that when Thor is a man, he is Thor, and when Thor is a female, she is female Thor. Correction, she's called Mighty Thor. And of course, this is where it all comes down to, the fact that Taika Waititi is not happy with people calling female Thor, which is what she is, Mighty Thor, because Mighty Thor doesn't make any sense, because guess what? Jane Foster cannot be Thor because Thor is an actual person. Thor is an actual god. Oh, he's just a comic character and he's just based on Norse mythology. Okay, go ahead and go with that, but it's also based in the lore of the story, and you cannot just change it at whim. If that is the case, if what you were saying is true, and this is based in Norse mythology and you can change it whenever you want, okay, well, let's go into Black Panther. That's based in, that's based in African culture, so you're saying that we can just change that willy-nilly? We can just change that into a white Anglo-Saxon? Of course not. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't work with the story. So why is it that you can say, oh no, we can do it when it comes to this, but we can't do it when it comes to other properties? Why? Because of hypocrisy. And that's really what it comes down to. Well, the reason why I and so many others are pissed off at what's going on with the current state of the comic industry, current state of the movie industry, has very little to do with what's, what the choices that they're making, and has more to do with the fact that they're making these choices and they don't expect, and they actually criticize anyone that's critical of their decisions. But on the flip side, if someone were to do something in the opposite direction, all of a sudden all hell breaks loose, production has to end, and it comes to the point where things are a lot more extreme. Things are a lot more serious when it happens from the other direction. It's just interesting, and I think worth calling out. And so Taika Waititi, I'm very sorry to hear that you're just calling out people like this, that you're going to be a troll like Rian Johnson. Don't be like Rian Johnson. If you want to learn the lesson of Star Wars, go right ahead and keep trolling the fans, and don't expect your film to do very well. But if you would rather want to be the director that did Into the Shadows, What We Do in the Shadows, that wants to be the director that did Thor Ragnarok, go right ahead, man, because again, I love the movie. I think you're a very talented guy. I think you're a very talented director. And isn't it interesting that Taika Waititi is also the same person that is going to be playing Adolf Hitler in his upcoming film, wearing light makeup? You could say, theoretically, wearing whiteface. Now, isn't that a little bit interesting that we can do these types of things with current culture, but you can't do certain things in the other direction? Now, of course, I know there's a lot more historical relevance to the other things we're talking about here, but I do think that if we're gonna be going after certain things, going after culture changes, etc., we need to be consistent with it. And until that happens, Taika and all your other friends in Hollywood, please shut up and just go away. But anyway, guys, what are y'all's thoughts about this? Do you think that Taika Waititi is going to be setting a very dangerous precedent here? Do you think that this is going to be a very bad look for Thor going forward? I honestly think it is. And I honestly am kind of worried now about this film, because we already have the announcements that just don't really seem that very, that don't seem good. Having Jane Foster come out as Thor, basically reiterating what was already pre-established in the comics and didn't really work in the comics. And then you have him now going after fans of the comics as well, because they are not happy. As I said before, there are some people out here that I think go a little bit too far, but then you have even just one person saying, I'm so depressed about this, there isn't a single announcement regarding this film. Again, that's so generic, and yet Taika felt it was his duty to go after that person and troll him. I just don't understand that. But anyway, let me know your thoughts about all these things in the comments below. Also, guys, make sure you check out my disc plate. It is really cool. As you can see right here, I actually get a pretty decent, a decent amount of money whenever you buy from here. So again, it does definitely support the channel. But I recommend it because there's a really cool metallic posters. I still need to record a video of showing off the posters and hanging them up and everything like that. But of course, as you guys know, school is about to start. We're about 2 days away from the first start of school. We are started orientation today, and hopefully I can get all this stuff hanged up and taken care of in the future. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Have a wonderful day, and as always, God bless.